Welcome back to our podcast, Our Last 30, where we wrap up part 2 of a special interview with our colleague, our homie Cesar. In our last episode, we covered a lot in a short amount of time.
So you can see we had to take our jackets off because we were a little too stuffed
From
earlier.
We may or may not have been fed, and that's none of anyone's business. We move forward. We were talking about, Cesar, your unique perspective. One of the questions that stood out for me was, will you consider writing your book and your story? And that's an active conversation that's happening as we speak.
Yep.
As someone who is who advocates for immigrant rights, right? You know, as a matter of fact, recently you were on social media, and I think your video got 10, 15,000, something like that, 14, 30, 22,000. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. I'm happy if 12 people like my stuff.
I was happy if one liked it, and that was my mama. Mama likes all my stuff, so I'm good.
So, you know, the question, right? We had people ask us questions. Well, submit questions for me to ask Cesar, and I have a couple of my own. As someone who advocates for immigrant rights, what's your take on how the public sees dreamers? Do you think people truly understand the reality of being a DACA recipient? And that's relevant because literally right before we came on camera was our conversation. My frustration with the federal government and previous administrations and why didn't they do this? And what we come to grips with every time is it's complicated, man. It's way more complicated than you would think and you understand. But what's your perspective on that, Cesar?
They don't. I think ultimately we've talked about it a couple of times. We've discussed it a few times. Everybody's perspective of what a dreamer is, who a dreamer is, what they can do, what they can't do, what they provide for this country, and what kind of support they bring to this country is not always seen. I think we're in that light of always being misrepresented or labeled, I guess, to where, we take other people's jobs, or we're here not paying taxes or not doing the legal stuff, you know what I mean? Things like that. There's a lot that's the rhetoric out there. That's a lot of what is being said whenever it comes to us as streamers and documented individuals. When in reality, a lot of us might not even see all the taxes that we end up paying to the government, all the stuff that the contributions that we give. Because you never know, if we don't become citizens, we can't utilize any of those benefits that we're still paying for at the end of the day.
Meaning the taxes
that are going into it,
purchasing of products, moving the economy. I think I read sometime that the Latino community is responsible for a certain amount of billions of dollars.
Yeah, $11.16 billion into taxes or into government-sponsored programs that we're contributing that we might not even get to see.
Absolutely supporting U.S. citizens. Ironically, in that effort. So, after everything you've been through, leaving home, struggling in school, with language, with the language piece, navigating DACA, becoming an advocate, what's your message to dreamers listening right now?
Man, I think my message mostly it's one of resilience and encouragement per se. I think, like I mentioned earlier, we gotta stay hopeful. We gotta stay upbeat. We gotta stay up to date. We gotta be able to be informed on what's going on. We have to still continue our lives, not put that in pause, and have the resiliency to overcome anything that might come to us. At the end of the day, we've already done it. There were years where DACA did not exist, so we were able to live. We were able to do our lives. We were able to move around without it. Now, I think we just got to be able to be hopeful of what might come down the road, if anything comes down the road, and if not, take advantage of the time that we have now to be able to do something, to be able to provide for our family while we can, to be able to establish our own business, to be able to create discretionary income outside of our jobs. to support us if anything were to happen with DACA or the program or any other law that might come into play.
I wanted the next question is from someone that I meant to introduce at the beginning. She's very camera shy. Celeste, she's our new co-producer helping us out. So if this looks a little bit more organized, you can thank Celeste. Again, I said, like, come on camera with us and start the podcast. She said she's not going to do it. So she's behind in the other room.
Behind the scenes.
She's behind the scenes, probably eating more of your mom's food.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Some of this stuff is, my guess, new to her. If you've not had a Durango-influenced gordita, Lord have mercy. I had not. Okay? So, shout out to whoever provided those. Cesar's mom. But this question came from Celeste. Again, a new team member. Thank you. She's helped us out so much for the last couple of weeks. Really under the radar kind of individual. Yeah. She said, for those of us like myself who are U.S. citizens, what's one thing we can do to support troops?
I think advocate for us. I think continue to have conversations with us. I think the biggest way for somebody that is not going through this, that does not have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis, the best way for them to understand, or the best way to view our situations and maybe make a change or an impact, is to learn what we're going through on a day-to-day basis. Because it's not, sometimes we put it in the back of our heads, but you never know what might happen going to work or whatnot. So I think that's the first component, understanding what it means, where it comes from, staying informed, and being able to utilize your voice whenever people are speaking ill of us. They're saying negative stuff, or not necessarily negative, but wrong stuff that does not really describe who we really are as a community, or what we stand for, or what we want, or what we're trying to achieve here. I think that's what we need. We need more allies. We need more people to continue to speak out. And we've seen it in Dallas, Houston, Austin, all these marches that people have been having to support immigrants, to support some type of change. I think that's a great way to do it. Obviously doing it peacefully in a respectful manner, like we've mentioned, but being able to utilize your voice and your seat at a table and that privilege of not having that fear every day, to be able to voice our thoughts and our sentiments and what we want to do and where we want to end up at.
And that reminds me also of when you talk about advocating, supporting, support those small businesses.
Yeah.
Just your small town businesses, for anyone, for that matter. If someone's in business, we've talked about it many times, like having this podcast has often felt like owning and operating a small business.
Well, last year?
Yeah, because we lean a lot on our colleagues and family members to not only provide feedback and advice, but support. Without those first 10 people that logged in and subscribed, like, we're nothing without those first 10. Okay?
We're going to be at 700 now.
It's humbling to have got to 30 and 40, and now just shy of 700. Probably by the time we post this, we're going to be above the 700 mark. And so we appreciate the support, and please reciprocate that by patronizing, supporting small businesses in your community. If they are, Black and brown businesses, all the better, right?
Yeah,
because
minority-owned.
Yeah, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses are unique in the efforts to make a living. I am always going to go to a small business before I go to a large corporation, right? We have rules when we travel on vacation. We don't eat at any chain. It's always doing our homework and finding a local
mom and pop shop
mom and pop place, right? a vendor mall or in rural New Mexico or someone's homemade shop in Arizona or Washington State. Like that's the kind of things that we try to teach our children. And if 20, 30, 40 years down the road, right, it's 2050, 2075, I'm no longer here. You better be here.
I don't know.
My children will be here, and I hope that they are doing the same thing, supporting small local businesses. Who knows what the world will look like in 50 years?
Who knows what the world's going to look like tomorrow?
We're trying to get past the next few days in some circumstances.
Sometimes we're trying to get through the morning without any changes.
Sometimes we're just trying to get through the morning. I think you can relate. You know, the days start a certain way, and yeah, it's unique.
There's so little that we can control.
So little. I was talking to a colleague the other day, and she does her podcast alone, all by her lonesome. And she just celebrated 14,000 downloads on her podcast. So shout out to Cristina Hernandez Jolly on her efforts in spreading her message.
We're catching up.
Christina, we're coming after you.
We're at a fraction of that.
We just want a fraction of the intelligence, the love, the ability. We just want a fraction.
A fraction of it.
We're not greedy. You know, we think about the individuals that have inspired us. Christina definitely has been an inspiration. I you know, just as a side note, like I look at my children. I have 4 kiddos, and I'm just inspired, man. I'm just like, you talk about inspiring change. My children have inspired change. And as we said, we've been saying we're gonna say it every chance we get. We're hosting our inaugural conference, a mini summit, March the 22nd, 2025. It's called Inspiring Change. We are, oh my goodness, connected with a phenomenal community college president, Dr. Macario Hernandez. Shout out to Dr. Hernandez, just an amazing leader. And he is the president at Mountain View
College
in South Dallas.
I don't know. It's Oak Cliff area.
Okay, I think it's South Dallas. We'll look at.
I don't even know what left and right is. So.
That's why drill sergeant would say, "This is left, and this is right." You know, getting back on track and back to the subject. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Cesar? What's the dream? What's the dream?
Why are you putting me on the spot like that? Dang. Ooh. Somewhat. 28 now? 32? I'd be old, first off.
So, let me help you with the math.
What? It is 32. 33, 34, I guess. I don't know. Something like that. I don't know math.
It's 33.
Oh, okay. 33. I'd be 33.
Cut that part out.
That's no. No. People know I don't do math. That's why I'm in education.
Or meth, for that matter.
I don't know. It's difficult.
As you think about that, can you answer what the next, without sharing too much, what does the next 6 months look like for you?
Oh, those are going to be insane. Those next 6 months are going to be wild.
Support us, man. We need your help.
Yes.
If we reach out to you via text and
Please
say,
answer.
We need a sponsor, we need a padrino, we need you to be a speaker, we need you to attend our event.
We need you to review some stuff.
We need you to review some stuff.
Hints out there.
We are going to be super dependent for the next few months in reaching out, calling in on a little favors. You know, like, hey, man, we come through for you all the time. Do you mind coming through for us and editing, reading, illustrations, whatever it is? We're going to do it.
Without giving too many hints.
We're working on some big projects. We really are. What does the next 5 years look like for you? What does it look like for you and for dreamers?
we were talking about this question earlier. We were planning it for one of our projects. If everything were to be perfect, if everything were to come out the way I wanted it or the way I would want to, in 5 years, I'd probably already have kids. At least one or two. I don't know. I think that's been the biggest dream lately, to become a dad, especially after seeing the babies in the family. That probably be number one. Professionally, I don't know, man. I guess it all's going to change and going to shift with how things work out in the next 4 or 5 years, especially whenever it comes to education. But if anything, I would like to start to still be making an impact and still be making a difference in the community, whether it's in an educational role, whether it be in a different role, whether it be as more of a in the speaking aspect of it, a speaking engagements aspect of it, with some of the projects that we have coming out. I don't know where that might lead, but I think still being able to be, I get what I call it, a beacon of hope for the community, to continue to inspire and help my community in whatever way that I can. That would be ideal for me. And then the other next big dream that I have, again, we've mentioned it before a couple of times, is have Mama retire. I think that's my drive. That's why I wake up every morning, whether it's for work, whether it's for coming in early in the mornings to do whatever, whenever we go meeting, whenever we go record, whenever we're recording, things like that. That's my big drive. And she's always like, oh, why do you put all these hours? Why do you put so much time in it? I'm like, Mom, it'll pay off. Yeah. I'm not saying when. I don't know when it's going to pay off. I don't know if it's going to be today. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. But I know and I feel it that what I'm doing is where I'm supposed to be at. I'm going in the right path. Again, I could be working a second job. I could be putting in overtime, putting in more hours, doing another thing to be able to make that goal sooner that I want. But again, I think I was blessed enough, been privileged enough to be in a position where I'm at now, and the roles that I've taken, whether it be in the community, whether it be at work, whether it be with the podcast, whether it be with the different projects, that I know that eventually that's going to be successful and going to be able to fulfill those goals and those dreams. So I think at the end of the day, that's the biggest goal, that's the biggest drive, and that's what we're striving for.
I think that Cesar and I are no different than those of you who are listening in today. We have these big dreams. We're always trying to figure out how to make it happen. You know, when I think about people like Patrick Bet-David, who 30 years ago, probably if you interviewed him, could not have imagined what he has accomplished in this short period.
Yeah.
Right? He's only mid-40s. When you were 15, when you were 25, man, could you have imagined? Now, did he think he was great? Did he think he already had greatness? Certainly.
Of course.
You don't be a Joe Rogan. You don't think like that at that capacity. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work, man. And I say that because we listen to a lot of podcasters. We engage with a lot of individuals. Goodness, man, I'm inspired daily. I work with some pretty phenomenal people. I'll brag about someone. I won't identify them, but they're in my leadership team. Let's say, not even 10 years ago, he or she did not have a degree. Working all the life experience, all the work experience, but no formal degree. She went back, earned that. Immediately went in, got a master's degree, and now that puts her in a position for promotion and everything else. That had she not got those degrees, she wouldn't have accomplished that. Yeah. Right? You know, when I listen to like David Goggins talks about that as well. Like, he was afraid that he was going to die, end up at the pearly gates or whatever his story is, and they would have said, "You're a 300+ pound guy at 5 foot something frame." Whatever his weight in proportion to his height, and he wasn't happy with that, and he made a massive change. And this guy is among the beasts of all the beasts, I've ever heard of. And if this was thousands of years ago, he'd be a gladiator, is what I'm trying to tell you. PBB would be a gladiator, dude. Joe Rogan would be a gladiator. It's just phenomenal. I look at my oldest son and my oldest daughter, and I believe it to my heart, man. They'd be queens and kings, and my two youngest ones would be a prince and a princess in route to leading their own kingdoms and queendoms. That's not accidental. The people in our circle that we surround ourselves with, or the people that we envelop and surround, that's what we're all about, man. So today's conversation, this two-part, was not just Cesar talk a little bit about it and get us a teaser into what's next. This is real stuff, man. Cesar, what advice do you have for the young lady I met only a couple days ago at a local high school, and she said to me, what happens? And I couldn't hear very well. And I said, Mama, did you ask me what happens if your parents get deported? I heard the word deported. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm sorry, Mama, did you say what happens if your parents get deported? She said, no, sir. What happens if I get deported? She's 17, man. What advice do you have for her, man?
Man. Advice? I don't know that I could provide any advice. I guess I can speak on what I would try to do, or what I would try to accomplish if I was facing that situation. I think, obviously, the first time I went back to my country was about 6 months ago, after 20 years. So I feel like it would be a necessity to just readapt, restructure things, and put everything that we've learned, the language, the skills, the experiences that we had in this country, and put it back into our own home country. I was reading this the other day. An individual was speaking about their story and being a dreamer. Sometimes they said, if I'm recalling correctly, it was like, okay, back in the day, our parents had the American dream for us to have a better future, to have a better life here in the United States. But what if that's changed? What if our dream now is to be stable, to be happy, to be content, to be without fear? And if that isn't back in our home country, then let's make that our dream. Let's embrace that change. And instead of how they said it and how they posted, instead of making somebody else's country better, let's make our own country better. Let's influence our own people. Let's give back to our own community back home and put us at a different level. Make that be the new dream. Make that be our new goal and where we want to be at and where we want to accomplish. And I think, honestly, after that, too, I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens. I mean, if I end up going back home, shoot, I know 2 languages. I'm educated. I'll find a job somewhere. I'll create a life for my family. I'll create an income. I'll make my family better, and my job and my duty to continue to give back to the community is never going to change. So instead of giving back, like that person mentioned, to a country that is not my own, I'd be giving back to a country where I was born, where I came up, where I was raised.
A country that wants you there?
That wants us there? Now, the president of Mexico is even encouraging people. It's like, if y'all want to come back home, we'll have jobs for you. We'll open our doors to you guys, if that's what you want. If not, we're going to continue to support y'all while being in a different country. But if y'all want to come home and find that new dream here, open arms. And so, yeah, I don't think advice, it's too difficult to give an advice in that situation. I think it's better that I put it that way, where I speak on what I would do or what I would try to accomplish if that were to happen to me, because that could happen to me.
What are some of the more difficult things you've heard from the Hispanic community in the last couple of weeks about how people have treated them?
Man,
have people been treated differently in the last couple of weeks?
Of course, people are afraid. And it doesn't even have to be with DACA or Dreamers or immigrant documented. People are being targeted. People are being profiled just because how way that you look. People are being profiled because of a tattoo that you might have. Whether it be in the store, whether it be in the streets, whether it be whatever. People would rather jump into conclusions before asking you a question to understand who you really are. So that's been, I think, a prevalent subject here in the last month, couple of days, last few weeks, that a lot of people have seen that difference in a lot of people. Whether it was your boss that's starting to be a little bit more cold shoulder on you or being a little bit more different, excluding you from some projects or whatever. Whether it be a friend that's trying to distance themselves from you because, I don't believe in what you say, or I don't believe whatever the case may be, family members. I think that's what we've seen. I think that disconnection and that understanding that we all have different views. We all go through life differently. We all have our own past. We all know what we're doing and what we're going through. And if we're making assumptions and we're jumping into conclusions on what that next person is doing, that just brings more, not rivalry, but necessary, not rivalry necessary, but just that back and forth of like disassociating with each other. And I think just that fear, we've seen it in some of the local places and stuff like that, that some of our community is not coming out other than to work. And even that, not even to work. Jobs are calling in sick to work. So kids aren't going to school. They're not going to grocery stores to purchase items because what we've seen, they're not going to churches. That school, church, some of these public places used to be like a safe haven, place for them to be able to be at. Now, that's all changed. So they're a little bit more mindful, more reserved as well, and I think those are the biggest issues that we're going through currently.
I will say this. I have also had people reach out and start to share some of the treatment they've started to receive from their employers. Major assumptions, major accusations, in fact. People who have been treated differently over only the last couple of weeks. Perhaps they always wanted to say something, and now people, for whatever reason, are okay with saying those things. Personally, I haven't experienced anything, but I will tell you that I feel what members of the community are feeling. As I get those quiet moments, whether riding the elevator to work on those days or my long drive homes, I sometimes turn off the radio and just start to think. I told you that one of my goals, and I've stayed pretty current with it, is to watch as many sunsets as possible. So I sit outside and watch those sunsets, and I reminisce, and I think about life, and I think about the calls and texts that I get every day, Cesar. And people are reaching out because they're hurting. They're hurting because people are saying things to them that they feel is disrespectful, or they're hoping that their friends and family members will reach out to them, and they haven't. So I'm going to end there. If you have friends that may be in a situation that are concerned, without exposing who they are, maybe you just reach out and say, just checking in and see how you're doing. It might get like, I'm fine. Well, why? Right?
What's going on?
Yeah, is everything okay? What's going on with you? And just, hey, let them know. Just, you're on my mind. I want to be sure you're good. I check in on friends all the time, and I have friends that check in on me, and it's appreciated. It goes a long way. And you think about you know, tragedy in the schools and the communities, and if you know someone from that community, it usually spurs that thought like, hey, let me go let me check on my homeboy, my homegirl from that town, be sure they're doing all right. It's the same way now. So I think if you reached out to your friends, particularly those that self-identify as immigrants, first, second, third generation, just kind of check in on them. I had someone check in on me, and I'm not an immigrant. They just said, hey, man, I know you work closely with the community. Are you taking care of yourself? That went a long way, man. I said, thank you. I am. I work closely with my partner, Cesar. We have a great conversations. But thank you for checking in, man. That went a long way. So I hope that you are in that same circle of professionals and family members and friends that can check in on each other. Yeah. And if not, you be that lead. You take the lead and do that. Today was a powerful interview with Cesar, and he made himself vulnerable, and he made himself willing to share some real personal points about his life. We hope that it had the same impact on you as it did on me. We hope that if you have your own immigrant story, that you feel empowered to not live in the shadows, to be proud of who you are. I argue that we all have our immigrant story. Yeah. Maybe it's multi-generations ago, but aside from the Native Americans that we know of, we all have our own immigrant story. However you want to interpret that. I don't get into the politics of how and when you got here. I only know that we're all here now. And I like to say that you won't meet a prouder American than I am. I'm a pretty proud American. And I also, man, if you've never been to an immigration, naturalization, citizens ceremony, it's a beautiful thing. I've been to a couple. The one that was most impactful was my spouse. When she became a U.S. citizen many years ago. It's powerful, man. It's powerful. And I hope that if that's your goal, that you can reach the same. I hope that if you wish to become a U.S. citizen, I hope that your dream and wish comes true. Thank you so much for listening to this 2-part podcast, Our Last 30. Thank you for being a part of the family, our higher ed, with the higher ed homies. Please know that we'll be keynote speakers March 1st. We'll be hosting our own mini summit March 22nd. We have our chapter has been published in a book and already won an award, my understanding. Mm-hmm. And we have some other things that we're working on. We're also working on merch. People have asked how do they get their hands on a t-shirt and stickers, and we have those in development. Production. Of course, Celeste is the one helping us with all that. So thank you, Celeste. Appreciate it. Thank you to our sponsors. Today's sponsors are Cesar's mom for making us lunch and snacks and now dinner. Gotta go. Love you, man. Take care, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Be good. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.